series, like all those things kind of just over and over and over and over again. Eventually, they became easy. They became very easy. It's just that I had to cram it in there. And some people, you hear these stories where they barely show up to class and they get A's. I've never been that person. I've always been the person that has to sit down, read through everything, and I'm bad at abstract concepts. I like the concrete into the abstract, not the abstract into the concrete. Very bad at talking about things theoretically, then trying to apply them. But if I can do it once, literally, then it's really easy for me to go into the abstract. And so it's just like, for me, there's no substitute for the hours. So if I were to give advice, it's just that you have to have time in the saddle. Hour after hour will make you slowly better. And at first, it's crushing, it's defeating, and it's not fun because you are bad at it. But then at some point, you're just not bad at it if you can just do it long enough. And you'll start getting okay at it. And then at some point, you might even get good at it. And when you get good at something, it feels amazing. There's like an exploratory thing. Like if you've ever played a musical instrument, you stop having to think about all the little teeny things you have to do to be able to play something correctly, and you start thinking about how you can explore that space. It's like you have a completely different problem. Same with programming. Programming has an identical kind of feel to it. It's just like you'll cross that barrier and it becomes magical as opposed to a chore.
Yeah, once you cross that barrier, somehow other things become easier. But then if you want to have a truly successful life, then you find the next barrier.
Yeah.
The next barrier. Yeah, I've always been the same. Everything's come really hard.
Yeah. I've had no free lunches. Everything's just been a lot of pain and struggle.
I think somebody said that on this topic that you think work smarter, not harder, is a phrase that you dislike. Somebody on Reddit told me this.
Yeah, I don't just dislike it, I hate that phrase.
Okay. Tell me about your hatred. How do you feel?
The reason why I dislike that is that there is a kind of a hidden suggestion there, which is that you already know what smarter is, so just do that. But things should be easy. You should just not have to try that hard. You should just do the quick, easy, obvious path, and boom, it's done. It's like, I've never experienced that in anything I've done. Everything is actually really hard, and most of the time I don't even know what I'm doing. So therefore, I don't even know what smart looks like. And so for me, the only way I can learn how to work smart is by working very, very hard and knowing that there's no shortcuts. And then when I finally figure out what smart is, when I work smart and work hard, it is that much better.
I think there's a deep, profound truth to that.
There's a lot of these phrases that just drive me nuts in our society.
But that one is really accepted. If we can just linger on it, because it really bothers me as well. So one, which is the really nice thing you said, the presumption there is things should be easy. And you're a failure if you don't see the easy path. Yeah. That's kind of the
implied thing. Just work smart, dog.
Yeah.
Why are you putting in all those hours?
And so it makes a lot of people that struggle feel like they're a failure.
Yeah.
Because I don't see it. And then the choice they have, well, I'll just go with I'll just be lazy, and then maybe the profound truth will come to me somehow. And yeah, I don't think I've met great engineers that find the smart way without the extremely hard work. The annoying thing about those great engineers is then looking back, they forget the hard work because they remember all the joy they now are experiencing from all the efficient, smart work they figured out how to do. They forget. So when they give advice, they give the stupid fucking advice of, well, just do it like the easy way.
Yeah.
And here's the easy way. But no. You have to put in the hours. The musical instrument is a beautiful example of guitar and piano. I've put in I don't know how many thousands of hours. And now when I'm explaining stuff, jiu-jitsu as well, I sound like one of those people just relax. In jiu-jitsu, by the way, just relax is a really wonderful thing for physical endeavors like piano and so on. Exactly. But to learn how to relax your hand, how to relax your mind, your body, and use the biomechanics of your body to apply the correct kind of leverage and the timing and all that takes thousands of hours of learning. Just to learn how to relax takes a lot of really hard work. In jiu-jitsu, that takes many months of getting your ass beat over and over until you ride the bus home crying, your ego completely shattered and destroyed, and then like a little element, it gets figured out late that night or next morning. And from the depression, there's this little plant that grows, this flower of insight. And you use that insight to then get your ass kicked again all next fucking month and year. And then you grow and grow and grow. And from that, you discover how beautifully simple jiu-jitsu is, or judo is, just speaking for myself, or piano or guitar. And then, yes, the profound truth or the mastery of a skill feels simple when you finally arrive to it, but the path is, for most people, is going to be a hard one.
I think I should make an addendum to the phrase.
Yeah.
The phrase should be "work hard, get smart."
Nice. That's a t-shirt.
That's what it should be.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, that was a tangent of a
Can I
tangent.
say one more phrase, cultural phrase that I absolutely hate?
Yes.
The journey is better than the destination. Right? Everyone's heard this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just take 1 second to apply what that means. That means forever, starting from now, you are only going towards a place that's worse. Right? Like that literally is what it means. Right?
Yeah.
Enjoy the journey, celebrate the destination. That should be what it would be. But no, people say these phrases are everywhere. There's just these very shallow phrases that have no logical balance to them.
Mhm.
You're just like, what does that? Why would the journey ever be better than the destination? Because you're always. I think this might even be a C.S. Lewis quote. Is that C.S. Lewis was like, no, this is terrible. No, the journey is not, in fact, better than the destination.
I love the demotivational posters. Progress, moving forward is better than moving backwards, even if you're still going nowhere. There's no.
I feel that one so much being in California for a few years. That is painful.
Positivity. If it doesn't break you today, don't worry. It will try again tomorrow. It's just a lot of really great posters.
I didn't even know this was a thing.
This is a thing.
Oh my gosh, I want that.
Yeah.
Hey, hi, this is the Primogen. You know, one thing that I forgot to mention in this podcast, which feels just so foolish to me for forgetting, is just what a big role my mom played in my life. She had to work 18 hours a day after my dad died. She really made our house be able to survive. I always looked up to her and I always thought her amazing, and she really was the reason why when I decided to get my butt kicked back in gear, she's just someone who I looked to as like an internal kind of inspiration for me to continue to keep on going, because I really wanted to make her proud. And all those years of just high energy effort, I really wanted to make sure that she knew that I was just so dang appreciative for it. So, hey, I just wanted to say thank you. Love you, Mom.
For people who don't know, you worked at Netflix.
By the way.
By the way. Now, how did you go from there, from the hardship that we mentioned, from the struggle, from the addictions, and so on, to a place where you were working at this incredible engineering company and building cool shit there? So tell the Netflix story.
Yeah, so, I kind of alluded to it earlier that I wanted to do my own startup. So for, I forget how long it was, 1 or 2 years or 2.5 years, built a startup, PHP, jQuery, everyone's favorite languages all put together. You can solve math stuff with jQuery. So I just was like totally into just non-stop doing that. This was like the height of Stack Overflow. I was asking really dumb questions on Stack Overflow, like what is more Pythonic? And then you get a bunch of upvotes and try to steal a bunch of karma away, and like all the fun stuff to do. Good times, and I was just like so into it, breathing, and I just breathe it in, breathe it out, and that's what I do all day, every day. And so it's just like non-stop building of a startup. Ultimately, that startup failed, and so I had to go get a real job.
Can you say what the startup was?
It is so wild thinking about it in the past. Before I tell you what it is, I want to tell one quick thing about my dad. My dad, in the early 90s, like 91, 92, was building kind of like a phone card company where you'd be able to pre-purchase long-distance minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you remember the 90s, about 97, 98, 99, 10, 220, all those different things, dial down the center, right? Like all of those companies where you can pre-purchase long distance minutes kind of came out and were very, very big. And so my dad was like 6 years early to that notion. And ultimately his startup failed. But he was just really early to something that would catch on really, really big, specifically in the telecommunication space. Me, as I grew up and did my own startup, I did a startup where it was text message marketing. This was in 2010, where you could receive, say, texts about various deals, all that kind of stuff. And of course, 10 years later, now you don't stop receiving texts, and text message marketing is all the rage. And so I also, much like my father, had a startup in the telemarketing space, in which was just like a half decade too early.
So is it fair to say you're almost always ahead of your time and you're a visionary of sorts?
No, in fact, I am not ahead of my time. I just got, some would say I got unlucky on that situation. But I did see, it seemed so obvious to me. At that time when I was doing it, 80% of phones were dumb phones. Most people had flip phones. When I went and sold via text, is what the name was of that specific product. It was, and we had the short code via text too. So it was pretty clever, right?
Yeah.
6 digits. When I went out and sold it, I only had a flip phone during that time. I didn't even have a smartphone, right? Because they were kind of untenable for a lot of people. So it's kind of just wild times to think about. But then after that, obviously, had to get a real job. We were living in an apartment in right next to campus, Bozeman, Montana, and the guy below us must have been on some amount of drugs. He threatened to kill us several times, would just like scream and just lose his marbles all the time. Very unhinged man, angry downstairs man is what we called him. One time my wife had dropped a battery, AA. Okay, so not like we're not talking about like a B battery or D battery. We're just talking about AA. Drop it, pop, land on the ground. I'm gonna kill you, like crazy, right? Absolutely unhinged behavior down there. So I had to go get a real job. We need to move out of there. We're gonna start our life, and so I worked at a small place, Schedulisty, which I kind of talked about the boredom there. Got to go to a place called Web Filings, where I'm working just tons and tons of hours during all that time. I'm still trying to figure out startups. Did one where you could pre-wish your friend's birthday messages, and then it would automatically send it via Facebook beforehand. We called it Greed Feed. It was pretty clever. Nonetheless, that story, I say all that story because everything that I was doing was exploring, building, finishing things, working, learning about corporate life, learning how to communicate in corporate life, being able to be successful at a job, learning about a bunch of kind of technologies that were about. And one of the big technologies during that day, specifically 2013, was RxJS. If you remember that one, RxJS, that's a link from C#, kind of ported over to JavaScript.
And for people who don't know, I guess C#, what is its closest neighbor? Java? Is Java like?
They obviously just took Java and ripped it off at one point.
Yeah.
But now it's such a dynamic, interesting language that it seems like it could be a really cool like balance of practical versus not practical. It's just I'm not really into wearing pleated pants and programming at a Microsoft house, so
Is pleated pants a requirement?
I think so.
Okay.
We'll get back to this. Can we just get back? Come on. Come on.
All right.
Trigger
Focus.
me
Web,
here.
web filings.
Okay, so
And
anyways,
degrees
Web
of,
Filings
like-
was that's where I had to do like all the matrixy stuff and build systems and just kind of all that, and it really pushed me because they also wanted me to do like 60 hours a week. It was not very healthy work-life balance. It was very hard work and kind of like that really hard work, going to cutting edge stuff, really understanding the world, really made it so that I was able to just be able to talk about stuff very commandingly because we had to build really complex state machines for the UI for what we're building. And so when I went and started getting a LinkedIn and all that, inevitably, just due to the fact that I've touched all these technologies and I had some sort of paper trail saying I've touched these technologies, Microsoft, dang it, Lex,
Pleated pants.
Pleated Pants reached out. No, Netflix reached out and said, hey, like, I see you've done RxJS. We do a lot of it. You want to come and interview with us? And, I was always told that you should never reject a kind of like a handwritten personal invitation to interview. This was way before bots, and even the bots were pretty obvious to tell that were bots. This was a manager at Netflix, Jeff Wagner, first manager ever, and he just wrote a really nice note, just like, hey, I see you're doing a lot of these things. We really need help with JavaScript. I would love for you to come interview. We're even using a lot of RxJS if you're interested in that. And so I was like, all right, I can come and I'll interview. And lo and behold, interview went on, and I called my wife, I think halfway through the interview, and I was just like defeated, absolutely crushed, because I said, and she might remember this, but I said, we now have to make a decision. Are we actually going to move to California or not? Because I already knew I had a job at that point. Like, I just was just knocking them out of the park. I was doing a great job on that. And so I just knew for a fact I'm getting a job at Netflix. All of the things. there's this thing that people always get so freaked out about when it comes to interviews and all that. And I luckily somehow avoided this. I don't get test anxiety. I don't get any of that. Because when I go into these situations, my only goal is to show the things I already know. And so it's like I walked into this situation. I had been preparing for this 80 hours a week for the last like 5 years. So just walk in and I'm just showing the things I know. And it was perfectly fitting for Netflix at that time period in the 2013 early JavaScript days on television. And so it was just awesome. Just worked out perfectly. Got hired there.
So where in California was Netflix? This is San Francisco.
Los Gatos.
Well,
So, if you're familiar, so classic
yeah.
symbol people do, which is this is San Francisco,
Yeah.
Oakland, San Jose. Los Gatos is just like a little bit,
Yeah.
kind of a little bit below, a little bit south of San Jose. Same mega contiguous city.
Yellowstone's in Montana. Yellowstone the show.
Yeah.
With yeah. So is it basically like that? Kevin Costner riding on a horse? Were you riding on a horse to campus or?
No, but I mean, I love those stereotypes. Actually, I mean, to be completely fair, when I was 15 years old, I was driving around on what is now a very busy, populated street, shooting gophers out the window of our car with a 22. So it's like Montana was a different place at one point than it is today. And there's plenty of parts of Montana that's still very rural, still kind of more of that old world. So yeah, a little bit, you can kind of get whatever you want from Montana. As far as like culturally goes, I'm not really sure the best way to put the difference between California and Montana. It's just different expectations. Like one thing I can really appreciate about California, or at least when I say California, I mean the Silicon Valley, because obviously LA and California and the Silicon Valley, very different attitudes, very different mindsets. You can't really compare one to the other. One thing I can say that's really positive about the Valley is that everybody is operating on this idea of like trying to build or create something, and there's an energy to it that's like very exciting. Like you meet somebody, they have a startup and they're working on the startup, and it's very exciting. And there's a lot of negative aspects to that, and we can all agree that our entire life being commercialized has probably not been that great. But the kind of the experience of being there and everyone's excited to build something, it's a really cool experience.
Yeah, it's great. It's really great. The excitement, the energy.
Yeah, Montana doesn't have that.
I have an admiration, a romantic admiration for for the shows like Yellowstone, being out in nature. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I like writing quote. Yeah, somebody also said Reddit is full of wisdom about you. Some of it could be fake news, but something about horses and this kind of thing. Like you like horses, you like riding horses.
We have horses on our neighbor had much more hilly land,
Yeah.
and one of their horses broke its leg, so they had to put it down.
Yeah.
And so we just said, hey, we're on much flatter land. Like you can just have your horses in our property. And so we just have horses that run around on our.
What about milking cows? Somebody asked about cattle and cow and.
So I've only had open cows. So if you don't,
What's
cow
an open
means
cow?
girl. Open means that hey, they've tried to get the cow pregnant. The cow did not get pregnant first try, and so they're culling that gene. They're getting rid of that gene. The cow's going to now, or the open cow's going to now go out to pasture for the year, then get turned into delicious T-bone steaks and of various things. And so we would house open cows on our property. So no, there's no milking of open cows.
Okay.
They'd be very upset if you tried to milk an open cow. Because they're not milking cows, right? You have to get like that cow pregnant, and then once you get it pregnant, you have to kind of put it into this permanent state of milking and all that, and it's a little bit more complicated than say what we did, which was just cows on eating grass, and I didn't have to touch them.
Okay. Well, that's wonderful.
Reddit is not a great place for wisdom about me. They're going to give you the craziest answers.
We will return to Reddit time and time again, my friend. So yeah, you took the leap into Netflix. So what was that like?
It was, this is one of those things where when you talk about it, people love to trivialize this because it's like, oh, you're taking a leap of faith by going into a FANG company in like 2013. Sounds super risky. My wife was 36 weeks pregnant. We had to travel to a place where we knew not a soul. We were about to have our first kid. We didn't even have a doctor. If you don't know, having a baby does you kind of want a relationship with a doctor. There's like a whole thing that goes on there. So it was a really hard and great experience. So I went to a job in which their culture deck. So during this time, this is where Netflix still had like kind of that old Generation X feel to it. Their culture deck was hire fast, fire fast. It was very in your face about like, hey, this is how we operate. You don't meet the standards, we kick you out. So it's like I'm leaving a place where it's more secure to go to a place that I don't know anybody to a job that's bold in its claims about firing everybody, with a wife that's just about to have a baby. And so it's like, and I'm from Montana, and you're born, every Montanan's born with a natural dislike of California. So there's like all these things kind of flowing into it, where it's just gonna be like, wow, this is a very intense experience. And it was hard, for sure. Like, it wasn't just some easy, simple experience that we were just like, oh, well, I work now at Fang, you know? We had to kind of work through that. Having a kid was very difficult. Our first kid was very difficult. You know, not having any family around to ever help you. Like, you know, took a much larger toll on my wife than me, for sure.
What was the technical learning curve for you? You showed up in your plaid pants, like dressed up.
Yeah.
What was it? What did you have to learn about the stack? Because Netflix, I imagine, is this incredible infrastructure that has to deliver just a huge amount of data. I'm just blown away by Netflix, but also like YouTube. These companies that have to deliver, like serve a huge amount of like bits.
Netflix has it easiest out of all the companies Netflix buys. Even though we have, you could say maybe we beat YouTube in view hours. I'm not sure if we do, but let's just pretend Netflix has 5x more view hours than YouTube. Whatever it is, Netflix has a fundamentally easier problem than all other companies. And let's get back to that. I will first tell you about the stack, but I'll tell you why it has a fundamentally easier problem. So when I first got there, they gave me my PlayStation 3. My boss said, go learn some code, come back to me in a couple days and tell me what you've learned, and then I'm going to start giving you bugs to fix.
Wait, PlayStation 3, what are you talking about?
Well, I was on the TV team. I had to go plug in a PlayStation and start launching programs onto the PlayStation 3 and figure out how to work Netflix on a television device.
Oh, so like you have different kinds of devices. Why PlayStation 3? It's other different.
It's just 2013.
Any
That's what
devices
had.
that plug into the TV. Okay, cool.
Yeah, not as many TVs had Netflix, let alone what they called their Darwin app, which is their new application. So if you bought a Vizio earlier that year, you'd get their older one there. It's called Plus UI. You get their older version. And so not many had the newer version. We no longer supported Plus, or we never actively developed on Plus. We only did stuff on Darwin. And so I had to learn that whole stack. The back end or the middle end, the middle layer between the actual back end and the front end was written in Groovy. And as I went around, Groovy is, if you're not familiar with Jenkins, then you've probably never interacted with Groovy. But Groovy is a JVM language. It's a very interesting language, but here's how it got started at Netflix.
It's the Magic Groovy is a powerful object-oriented programming language that runs on the Java Virtual Machine, released in 2007. It has evolved to become a versatile language that combines both static and dynamic typing capabilities.
All right, so the AI is kind of lying to you. Groovy is not a powerful brain language. Nothing that statement makes it seem way cooler than it actually is. You will be 1 out of 100 people that have touched Groovy that said, oh yeah, Groovy's great. And the other 99 will be like, heavens forbid you ever have to touch that language. So, when I got there, nobody, not a single soul at Netflix, there's 40-some engineers, had any idea how Groovy pretty much worked. Somehow people just hacked together these scripts and put them all on there, and it worked, and it was all, this was before there was a Groovy RX port. We wrote our own version called WX. It was a nightmare. Observables, all these things. I remember one time they told me that, oh yeah, you know, with RX it's really easy. You just say what you need to do, it maps out, and boom, 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 everything will run multi-thread and all that. And I was like, oh wow, really? So all I did was go like observable.sleep1, because I just wanted to see it sleep and then do the next thing. And it turns out when a thread sleeps itself, no thread can wake it up. And I just turned off all of staging because I ran it like 10 times, like, oh, it's not responding. Oh, it's not responding. Oh, now it's not even coming back. Broke all of staging for everybody, so no developer could work for the rest of the afternoon because I locked up all the instances, because it turns out, no, it was in fact not multi-threaded. Every assumption we've been told is a lie. No one had any idea what they were doing. It was a wild time. And so I just simply naturally gravitated towards that because I'm good at printf debugging. I'm good at doing those things. So I was like, here, I'll just figure this out. Here, I will do this. So I had to rewrite how we do the data structure on the front end for the TV, from what is called a Lolomo, list of movies, into Loloromo, which is a list of recommendation objects for a movie. Why would we need to do that? Think about this. You have two lists. One has Live Free Die Hard Bruce Willis because you love Bruce Willis. The other one has Live Free Die Hard because you want tough men doing tough jobs. Well, during those days, we'd only have one way we could show evidence why you wanted it. So we couldn't say, oh, because you liked this other movie. You'd go to that one and say the same thing. So we had to kind of add one level of indirection where we could decorate the video with the recommendation information.
Okay, so you can abstract away into the space of recommendation versus the space of movies directly.
Yeah, so you can't hang it off the video because obviously then it would be the same for everything that shows that same video. So
that's amazing.
I had to do all this, and I wrote it in Groovy, and I just did it. And people were like, how did you write this in Groovy? And it's just like, well, I read the language reference for a day and then programmed it well. What do you mean? It was a very radical language, shall we say. And so I just simply became the person that knew these things. So they just give me more and more jobs at that. And so that's kind of how I excelled, being the person that was willing to do the thing that no one else was.
Yeah, can you actually speak to the print-out debugging? Like you walk into a system, and there's a lot of systems in the world like this. Like Twitter was like this when Elon acquired Twitter, and it rolls in, and there's this old janky code base that's just like a giant mess, and you have to basically do printf debugging. Like, what's the process of going into a code base and figuring out, like, what the fuck, well, how does this work, what are the flaws, what are the assumptions? You have to, like, reverse engineer what all these other engineers did in the past, and the mess across, you know, the space of months and years, and you have to figure out how all that works in order to make improvements.
The reason why I've always just been good at printf debugging, because one of my first kind of side quest jobs that I got was writing robots for the government when I was still at school.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd kind of do this contractually for so many hours a week. And my boss, Hunter Lloyd, great professor, by the way, he just said, hey, here's your computer, here's the robot, here's how you plug it in, here's how you run the code. Can you write the flash driver, the Ethernet driver? Can you write the planetary pancake motor? Here's some manuals. I'm missing some, just figure it out, I'll be back. So that was government work for me. So I was like, okay, I'll figure all these things out. And I figured them all out. And the only way to really get anything out of the machine was to print. And so it's like I had to become really good at printing my way through problems. And so that kind of became this like skill, I guess I adopted, is that I can just kind of printf debug my way through a lot of these problems. Obviously, I'm not a game developer, probably a different world. Probably should use, I think John Carmack was on here and talked how great the debugger is. Different world. Because when I was at Netflix, there's machines that exist somewhere where on AWS, I'm not logged into them. I don't even know how to log into them. I'm not even sure if I have credentials to log into them. They run once somewhere, and I have to figure out what happened and why it's happening. So it's like, I'm going to become, this is what I've trained for. I'm a printf debugging champion. So it's just like, I could just run through these things really quickly and figure out why they're happening the way they're happening.
You're a special human. I think that's an incredible skill set to have, to be able to drop in into any code base, to drop into any situation and do printf debugging, meaning like, you know, you're in a dark room and you're feeling around that room to try to figure out what the room is.
Well, I had the code, so it's like I can kind of blueprint what's happening. Like, I don't understand the services or anything that's happening, but like, you can start guessing pretty quick as to what's going wrong.
Right, but then the print side of that helps you confirm your intuitions, test your intuitions, and build up more and more information, and then you start to accumulate like this bigger picture from that. What the edge cases are that break the system and not. I mean, I think that just that kind of space, like that kind of situation, is intimidating for a lot of engineers. Like they break down at that point. I think it really is a powerful thing to be able to come into a code base. That's generally a skill set of like very few of us start from scratch.
Yeah,
and actually, this is the fundamental problem of web development and in general, where they're like, I don't know what's going on, I'm going to write my own thing from scratch, right? As opposed to like actually doing printf debugging on the space of languages, on the space of problems, because there's a lot of wisdom and solved problems already in this code base. It's a much more important skill set to understand, to learn from the mistakes and the wisdom of the past, of the ancestors that came before, and build on them, as opposed to throw it all out and start from scratch. This is something obviously you see a lot with a JavaScript framework that comes out, a new one every single day. So
I have a very great story about that. But this is what like I think has shaped me the most about my perspective of other devs. There's this dev, and he always just wrote things in just what I thought was such a bizarre and weird way. And this had to do with Falcor, so our data fetching library for Netflix. This would run on mobile, so I had to write it in Objective-C. It had to run on television, and it had to also run on web. So it ran on everything. And me and one other person were responsible for this thing working. And the request side where we'd have to dedupe the information that we already have, the requests that were pending, and the new data. So I had to figure all that out based on what someone's requesting, and then just only optimally request the stuff that we don't have. He wrote it such a goofy way, and I'm thinking, man, this guy is just, what a goofball. So I deleted it all, and I start writing, and I'm like, look at how much nicer this is. It's looking so good. I'm like, ooh, there's that one edge case. Okay, I can see why he wrote it this one way. That's not a big deal, though. The rest of my code's really great. But at the end of it, I'm like, I literally almost line for line just reproduced what he already wrote. It's like slightly different towards my style, but I just wrote the same code. And I'm like, I'm an idiot. I am the idiot in this situation because it was already a solved problem. I just didn't take the time to learn what he did. Instead, I relearned what he did by rewriting the entire thing.
I think that's a skill set that is extremely important for people to learn. I see that in myself. That's a constant struggle for myself. When facing a code base, for example, but this applies generally in life, where somebody did a lot of work to do a thing, you should invest a huge amount of time and get really good at figuring out what they did, why they did it, do a lot of print-out debugging to understand what they did. It's a much more efficient way to understand a problem deeply than to start from scratch, even though there's a constant temptation to start from scratch, because starting from scratch is fun. You do get the puzzle solving, all that kind of stuff. It's just not going to be the right thing to do. Usually pain is the right thing to do, and it is for most people painful to understand other people's code bases.
I highly recommend starting from scratch if you want to understand a concept. You don't know how an HTTP server works? Create a TCP socket, learn how to parse HTTP. It'll become very easy, and you'll go, this is the reason why whenever I get a request, I have to await the text. I now understand why the text is, for whatever reason, not there. I get it. I now understand it. And so you kind of gain these new perspectives just by simply parsing something out.
All right, back to the wisdom of Reddit. Apparently there are memes and legends about your programming arc in Netflix. This Falcor system you mentioned. Somebody, I think it was Teach. How do you pronounce his name, by the way?
Teach.
Teach. Okay, Teach.
It's TJ would be his name, but we call it Teach. Or Telescopic Johnson.
Oh, wow. So many names. You know, DDoS, distributed denial of service attacks. You apparently were able to accomplish the simplified version of that of just DOS. That's a legend. So you basically broke down the system somehow.
Yeah. So
can you tell the story of that?
I'd be glad to. So there's this Falcor business, right? And I did discover the bug before anybody else, and I did report it to security, and it was so bad, it actually got its own name, Repulsive Grizzly Attack.
Yeah.
And they even give examples of how to do it. Effectively, what it means is that there is a request that targets both memory and CPU and will destroy. There you go. Look at how Netflix. The next one down was the article that was actually written.
Yeah.
I don't get mentioned, which is a little bit upsetting considering I was the one that discovered it and told everybody how bad it was. Anyways, and had the right to fix for it, or the first fix. So this is how it works: is that you can do something pretty similar, I believe, with GraphQL as well. It has the same kind of danger. Any of these kind of RPC request as much or as little of the data as you would like frameworks are vulnerable to this kind of attack. So with Falcor, what you do is you give it an array. This array is called a path, and that's the path to the data. But sometimes you don't want to have to write out, I want row 0 or list 0 or row 0 column 0 title. I want row 0, column 0, description. You don't want to have to write out all of that. So instead, you could just be like, I want rows 0 through 10, columns 0 through 10, titles, and descriptions. So you can write in a very compact, nice little format, and it'll give you all that data. It'll go to the server will fill that all in, and give it to you. Oh, dang it. List 3, it only had 3 videos in it. So what happens when I try to re-request the data? Well, I need a way to be able to tell my system that you have requested the data and there's nothing there. So this is called they call this like a boxed value. So it's gonna be like type something, value, there's nothing there. We've already requested it, there's nothing there. They call it's like a sentinel value, if you will, a boxed value. And we have this little special flag we pass called materialize, meaning that when you ask for a path, we will make sure we fill it out so we don't accidentally erase anything. And at the very end, we'll say, okay, the request you've made has already been made, there's nothing there. Well, what happens if I request rows 0 through 10,000, columns through 10,000, one more item through 10,000, and then a whole bunch of properties, and then ask it to materialize?
No.
Well, I'm about to go create billions of objects in the JVM, and what happens to the machine? It stops running. And then if we try to JSON, even if it could create them all, we then ask it to JSON serialize. It's not going to do it. Right? Like, it's impossible. And so that was the attack vector, is a simple while loop would have taken down and held down Netflix for a very long time, because one request would kill one machine on AWS. And so that means it would just turn it all off. And this was on the website, this was on TV, this was on mobile. Like, this was profound. And here's the worst part, it was in production for years, so we couldn't even roll it back. There was no like, oh crap, let's just roll back to 2 weeks ago and we'll kind of fix forward, figure out. No, it's like, we could roll back to 2011. Like, that's our option, is 2011, and that's it. So we had to figure out a way forward and all that. And so it was like, the amount of problems that would have happened if someone would have discovered this is unstatable.
Just to be clear, the infrastructure that's serving the videos would shut down.
Yeah, the UI, like, you couldn't perform any actions on the UI. You surprisingly could still stream video, but you would never be able to get to a video to stream, because every action you would take would be completely shut down. And so it wasn't a DDoS, because you didn't need a bunch of computers to try to overwhelm the system by making a bunch of requests. One request, one machine. If we had 50 machines serving the millions of requests, it'd only take 50 requests to shut down the entire UI.
Isn't it possible to do DOS or DDoS on basically any software system? Like, defending against all the, closing all those attack vectors is probably really difficult. If you take any sufficiently complicated software system, there's probably so many ways to overwhelm it.
Yeah, I mean, this is why people use Cloudflare. I think DHH said it best, which is like, we have our website and we have a strong bodyguard on the outside. So Cloudflare has a bunch of utilities all built in, because, obviously, this is why everyone hates all these Bluetooth devices that connect to the internet, because they just turn into attack vectors where people use those to DOS or DDoS other sites. And so you don't need something sophisticated. You just need a bunch of requests to come in, and you can take down websites. And so that's why these fronts are really good at kind of discovering where these problems are. But DOS is a bit different, because it doesn't have to be overwhelming by using resources with a whole bunch of requests. It really just means simply that there's a denial of service attack. One of them could be, there's a regex attack that existed where Cloudflare actually did it to itself and shut itself down, which is, there's a regex expansion attack, where given the right kind of regex, if you know someone's running a specific regex, you can actually provide input that is maximally bad, and that thing goes to like super processing. It takes 10 seconds to process a single request. Then you only need to make hundreds of requests and you shut down the whole service. It's not like you need some giant machinery to make 1 trillion requests. You only need just some small amount to completely destroy a service. And so the web is an extremely difficult place to do it correct.
This is super fascinating. I do also wonder how many ultra competent, black hat hackers there are, versus sort of the good guys versus the bad guys. How many bad guys there are, and what is the distribution of skill set on the bad guy side that are constantly trying to attack?
I assume there's probably a huge number of just really simple ones, script kiddies, right? Just people trying to just do things. And then there's a huge amount of like social engineering that just goes in, where hacking's done not with a computer, but just by, one of the classic ones. Kevin Mitnick had this one in his book, which was, you'd call up somebody pretending to be like, Charlene, we're doing some auditing, and I think your pin's out of date on file. Is it 2323 still? And they're like, no, it's 4747. You're like, oh, thanks, Sharon. Boom, you just hacked them, right? Like the classic. People love correcting bad information. This is like a standard. So like, there's all these ways people hack. And so my assumption is that there are really great white hat hackers. There's really great black hat hackers. But in vulnerability space, the thing is that discovering a vulnerability and you don't let anyone know, the white hat hacker still has to make that same discovery.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the real thing is that black hat hacking in some sense has a fundamentally easier job, or at least a job in which they can take advantage of for much longer periods of time. One's the process of discovering who's breaking the system. The other one's trying to figure out how to break the system. and it seems like most software is held together by toothpicks and glue,
Yeah.
and there is a lot of dangers in every piece.
And also the social engineering aspect. That's a real attack vector. I think that's the attack vector that will do in the long term the most damage in the world. Especially as AI tooling becomes easier and easier to convince people at scale to do that kind of email grandma. I think that's a really serious attack vector, like human psychology and all that. I kind of assume whenever there's a girl that approaches me, it's kind of some kind of social engineering project, some attack vector, some intelligence agency. In fact, I'm pretty sure.
We're back to a beautiful mind, aren't we?
Beautiful mind, yeah. I have a whiteboard upstairs that I calculate everything, everybody's trajectory and move.
You're not wrong though with the attack vector, especially in the day of AI. Like one thing that I don't think a lot of people are talking about as we integrate more and more AI is that prompt injection is like an extremely hard thing to defend against because it's not really clear how you defend against it. If it's just at the end of the day, word calculator make word come out. If you can figure out the proper word calculator input, it might just break its bounds and start doing something it's not supposed to do. And there's a whole future where there's all these products that are going to be vulnerable to things they never thought about. It's one thing where you forget an edge case while you're programming. Now you have to guess what people might be able to think of making something that has access to a system be able to do, right? And you don't have a way to reason about it. Its reasoning came from Reddit and other words that it's read and how to put things together. Like this is it's a massive space that's going to be happening. That's why I'm personally thinking, don't give too many powers yet. Like we don't know the attacks that are about to happen.
Yeah, the more power we give to software systems, the more damage they can do. That certainly is the case. But the more awesome they could do, and that's the knife's edge that we all walk along as a human civilization together, hand in hand. Will we flourish or destroy ourselves? Question mark. Folks on Reddit, the good folks on Reddit, demanded that I ask you about the time you broke production. Is this related to Falcor? Did you break production?
I've broken production quite a few times. I've broken production for so many stupid reasons. One time I broke production because I came up in the PHP, and PHP static means static for the lifetime of the PHP, and PHP was the lifetime of every request, right? That's why PHP was so inefficient, because every request was its own instance, and therefore static memory was for the lifetime. I guess I never put that together, and so I had some objects that I made static because I was like, oh, I just need this for the lifetime of the request, and lo and behold, those weren't lifetime. A whole bunch of bad data got all over the place. People were showing up saying they were from all these different countries, and everything was all wrong because I just, whoopsie daisies, I just made a whole conundrum with that. So that was one time I did it. Another time is I took down, if you were on the homepage, on the website, waiting for Lady Gaga's video to come out, and you were watching the countdown go down, if it reached 0, the billboard would freeze and it wouldn't work. If you refreshed, it would work, but the reveal, the big reveal, I screwed that up and my boss got real upset, and so did other people in Hollywood got upset about that one. That was like a my bad. Sorry, Jeff Wagner again. I remember that one. I remember that one specifically. One time I released a bug where, again on the billboard, if you pressed add to my list, I accidentally programmed in an infinite loop. And it just, your whole web page would just freeze.
Are some of these bugs difficult to discover until you start?
That one seems really easy looking back on it.
Yeah.
And we actually, during those days, we had manual QA that are supposed to go through everything. So I didn't feel as bad because my manual QA counterpart also missed it. Like we all missed it, but it's just so simple. You just press that button, boom, it just completely freezes the website.
Polluting the code with sort of global variables that are holding values, as PHP I think allows you to do. That's a tricky one to discover because you rely on it. Then there could be somebody else assigns a value to it.
Just data races everywhere. And I just didn't understand. Like in my head, static was like, oh, this is for the life. Like I was just so locked into the PHP world at that time that I just made just such a like looking back on it, it's so obvious. But during the time, it's hard.
So in general, pushing to production, I talked to Peter Levels about this. Obviously he's operating as mostly a solo developer, but he often on the website said thousands, not hundreds of thousands of people use. He often ships to production, pushes to production, meaning like just no testing, just like push to fix. What are the pros and cons of that approach in general to you? What do you think?
It's obviously much easier the smaller your organization is. I think no one would argue that sentiment. If it's just you working on a singular project, it is obviously much easier for you to push directly to production because you are the only one working. You know all the ins and outs, and if something were to break, you would discover it.
Mhm.
So to me, that makes sense. Like I think the way he operates is perfect for what he does. You couldn't take what he does and move it to say Microsoft or Netflix or Google because that would obviously it would just be a disaster just due to the amount of people all pushing to production. And so I personally love that. I think that you have to gauge both the application you're building and its complexity and what you're pushing and how many people are working on it. I think those all go into how you can kind of do that. Because not all applications are created equal either. Like that application I was making with zooming and scrolling where we had all of our own everything, it was a very deep, heavy logic app. And that was regardless of what was happening on the website. Most of the code was library code. And that becomes way harder if you don't have a good test suite and stuff to kind of run before you push it out because when you squeeze that ball, different things come popping out in different areas, and that's a very harder problem than say if you're doing more of like a heavy visual one, because a heavy visual one you're affecting just this one area's visual stuff and you can test it, and like that's normally the end of it. Whereas so it depends on like the coupling and everything. So I love his approach, by the way. I have such mad respect for anyone that operates that way because I think it's a great way. It just is so good because it kind of breaks this notion that tech Twitter has that, oh, we have to use all these expensive services. You need to use all these kind of things because if you don't use all this kind of stuff, if you're not using the latest version of React, if you're not using the latest version of this, you're going to simply, you're simply not going to make it as a startup. It's impossible. And it's just like, no, that's not software. Like most of software isn't the new stuff. Most of software is old, crappy software that someone has to maintain, and it actually is really, really great and has lots of really hard problems. And if you look at it differently, it's actually fantastic.
For people who don't know, his tech stack in terms of web development is PHP, jQuery, and SQLite.
Yeah, all great stuff. I'm just surprised he still uses jQuery, just given the fact that at this point on the modern web, everything is. You have document query selector and add event listener click, right? It pretty much has everything you already need. It has DOM content load. Like all the reasons I used jQuery back in the day was adding a click on a button was like hard. You had to deal with IE7, IE8, IE9, right? Like those are hard differences. Whereas now it's just so easy. I'm just surprised it's even that.
That's definitely a trade-off. I still use the exact same stack, PHP, jQuery, and different flavors of SQL. But the question there is, you keep using jQuery because you can get the job done really fast, and there's no significant performance hit that you detect. So, like, why switch to something else? But it's always probably, as we'll talk about, good to explore and to learn.
Not all tools are great at solving all problems. And so, what you think is really, the problem is you run into this kind of trade-off, which is you have some tool belt that you're very adept with. All the ins and outs. There's no unknowns, but there's no surprises in this. You know what you're building, you know what you're getting into. You will go through and you will be able to solve the problem. But if you ever use a different language or a different experience, you could find that some things are able to represent states way easier in a way more efficient way, and you can solve problems really efficiently in some versus the other. And so it's like, if you don't take the time to explore as well, you could be missing out on something that makes you twice as good on this one specific problem, like subset. And so I kind of value being able to look at all problems. And so I don't want to get stuck on one thing, though I see why people do, which is for the efficiency's sake.
Let's just return to the infrastructure, the platform of Netflix, and speak more generally, Netflix, Twitch, YouTube. Anytime I use any of these services, I'm just blown away by the infrastructure it takes to deliver the service. YouTube and Twitch are unique versus Netflix, where the creators can roll in themselves and upload stuff.
Yeah.
So on the consumption side, YouTube has over 100 billion views a day, over 1 billion hours watch time. But on the sort of creator side, 1 million hours of videos are uploaded every day. 1 million hours. It's like you have to service both, and you have to deliver everything. It's incredible to me. Can you maybe speak to your own intuition, just zooming out on it, what it takes to deliver that kind of infrastructure?
For me, the thing that I find vastly complicated and I can't imagine the engineering hours, is how do you even create an edge in that situation? And what I mean by an edge, I mean like when people say this phrase, if you're unexperienced, an edge is where you deliver data to be, you want that edge to be as close to the customer as possible because that's where the data lives, and then the communication between the customer and what you're doing is really, really small. Obviously, the speed of light adds up, the amount of hops adds up, the amount of services that you have to remotely call adds up. They all add up and they all add inefficiencies to the system. So something like YouTube, they want to be able to serve that data as quick as possible, but their data changes constantly, and relevance is almost directly tied with the newness of the item. So it's like, how do you even cache these things out? How are you doing this? So they must have such an incredible caching network that I can't even fathom what it takes to do that. That just, to me, is just so impressive. 1 million view hours in how many different resolutions with how much data? What is 1 million view hours? Is it 4K million view hours along with 1080p, along with 720p, along with 1440p? Like, that number is an insane number.
Actually, and it is brilliant what you said, which is for YouTube, often the new thing is extremely important to show to everybody. And so you can't rely on caching or trivial kind of caching. You have to like deliver the new thing as quickly as possible. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. So there's the entire system, the recommendation system that knows each individual human watching YouTube, and it has to integrate into that the new thing while also caching this incredible cluster of possible videos that you're potentially interested in. So, and integrate into that ads, right?
Yeah.
In the case of YouTube and Twitch and so on.
It's a really tough problem because you have to think like, what is the cache hit rate on this? Because there's so, because the problem now actually comes down to space. Like, space actually becomes a real problem.
Yeah.
Like, how many hundreds of petabytes do they have that they have to like, okay, what do we cache and where do we cache this, right? Like, the number, I mean, I think in the terms of like gigabytes or maybe megabytes. Like, they have to think in probably versions of bytes I don't even know the name for, right?
Yeah,
Like, it's
yeah.
like such a different problem. And that's why I said Netflix has a much easier job when it comes to caching. So if you've never looked it up, it's called OCA. And that, we know what videos we're releasing. We know what videos are hot in specific areas. It's a very limited set. We're not going to all of a sudden get, oopsies, we got 1 million new view hours, right? We don't even have to worry about that as a problem. Instead, it's like, okay, we know Stranger Things Season 5 is about to drop. We're going to pre-cache Stranger Things Season 5 in every single OCA across the world because that thing's about to get hammered, right? And so it's like, it's able to do such a different kind of decision-making than what you have to do with something like YouTube. And then Twitch is even more wild because now you're actually ingesting video and trying to make it go out all at the exact same time for all video. And you have to transform that video from whatever format and whatever the bit rate is into something that's more efficient in the system like that. Hats off to Twitch engineering, like, because that is like that's some serious work.
And here's some asshole Lex coming out and tweeting about YouTube features. So like, there's a listen.
You're not wrong on the features you're asked for, though.
I think this is an engineering problem of how do you allow fast iteration and addition of features that shouldn't have to be integrated or impact the whole code base. So at the edges of the code base, sort of improve on certain features without like having to consult the mothership of the code.
It's the large team, right? That's the fundamental problem. When you get into YouTube size, there is the team/organization that deals with data warehousing. There's the team/organization that deals with delivery. There's a team/organization that's like the middle layer, how you even, they're going to be like the little microservices to talk to these places. Then you have this front end engineer. So like for a small feature, you have to get middle team, you have to get back end team, you have to get all these things. Quick example, Netflix. Are you familiar with the dystopian Black Mirror?
Yeah.
Okay, season 1, episode 1. Do you know season 1, episode 1? Everyone who watches Black Mirror typically knows this episode.
Okay, yeah. I don't remember what it is.
Okay, forgive my language, but they call it the pig fucker episode.
Oh yeah,
Right.
Of course.
Once you've seen the episode,
Yeah.
you will then know this episode. Well, when Netflix adopted it, I got pulled into a room. There's like a VP, a product designer, a VP, and they said, hey, we're about to release our own version of Black Mirror, season 3, I think, at that time. We need episode 1, season 1 to not be the first thing people see. So let's just reverse the season order. That required me I had like 20 engineers I had to gather together to be able to have this happen. And that's just the problem with big companies, is that eventually every little thing has to become its own team. And so even small, there's no such thing as a small feature.
Reversing the order of the drop down that selects the seasons is a meeting with a bunch of VPs and engineers. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
There's got to be a way to accelerate that. The natural scaling of a company and the bureaucracy that grows, yes, slows that down. But just having seen Elon work a lot, his teams are able to like still keep it very fast even as the company grows. There's got to be a process doing that, especially for for the pig fucker episode. Like I don't know where that's in the priority list, but like for important things like that, you should be able to do that quickly. I don't know. Can you speak to like how would you do that?
Well, I can tell first how it was done. Remember, so at a place like Netflix, there would be, I think that at that point it's called a product called Dexter. I can't remember. There's our actual like movie metadata warehouse that's going to be highly integrated with Hollywood. That's going to be, where that side is able to manage all that. So I'm like, hey, you need the ability to mark things that need to be reversed, because we're going to run into this a bunch. And we did. We ran into quite a few topical shows that all need to be reversed and all that. And so it's like we need to be able to reverse episode numbers, season numbers. We need to be able to hide season or episode numbers. Like in the case of the Chelsea Handler show, it was like a daily show. So it's like you don't need episode numbers. You just need the latest one. And so like there's this whole problem that exists. And so it's like, okay, you need to work on that for your UI over there. Then you need to be able to store that data. Then we need to be able to go to the people that can actually get the video data out of that and provide it to our service layer. I need to go talk to them and convince them they need to be able to give me the new methods and everything to do that. Then I need to be able to go write the methods to get it down. And then I need to go to the UI and make that accessible. Now I need to go to website people. I need to go to mobile people. I need to go to the TV people. And so it's like, you can see this thing like snowballing. And for us, the big thing that Netflix did that was so well is after I met with these people that were high level, I was the captain. I'm the captain now.
Yeah.
So I went to all these teams and said, "Hey, manager, I need an engineer. We need to get this done within the next couple of months because we got Black Mirror coming out."
Yeah.
So she would go, "Okay, here you go. The map team. I need someone to help me with being able to get data out of the Lolamo for this." And so it's like, "All right, you're working with this engineer." I'd go to the BMS team. "Okay, I need this engineer." I'd go to the Billboard team. "I need this engineer." Go to all these little places to get all these little pieces of data, and then I was the captain. So I was like, "You're working on this, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this, I'm doing this, let's go." Right? And so it's like, that worked, and we were able to go pretty fast for a big company. And the fact that it required like 20 engineers to do such a simple task, we were able to do it in like, gosh, I'd say about like 3 weeks worth of effort. But that was still, I thought that was amazing comparatively to how many people move.
Well, because you have the freedom of the agency to do it. You said the captain of the ship. That's really powerful. For
Yeah.
big companies, that's a risk. Because you
Yes.
can fuck it up. You might not see the bigger context legally or any the sort of the bigger context of the impact on the industry or all the contracts that are made, all that. So it's a risk, but it's a risk you have to keep taking. And then when you fuck up, you fix and then maybe pay the cost legally for that, whatever. But long term, that risk pays off because you're going to keep creating a better and better product, evolving where the industry is going, constantly innovating ahead of where the industry is going, and so on. Yeah.
And not only that, I think one thing that is just so important is that, yes, the product will get better, but the people that you hire and the people that you keep around are better. Because they're the ones that show maturity. They're the ones that can just, you give them something and they can rally the troops and make something happen. Like, that's a very great group of people to hire. And so you also naturally select out great engineers that aren't just simply good at coding. They're good at coding, and they're good at explaining, and they're good at convincing, and they're good, like you have to create a very lean audience that can move fast.
And I think for great engineers, having to wait for like, okay, let's schedule a meeting for next Wednesday with the VPs, and that destroys their soul, and they either don't want to contribute anymore, or they leave the companies, or they just kind of tune out and take the golden handcuffs and just buy a nice house and focus on family.
And I feel like I would die under that. So, like, honestly, like that is my death sentence, is where it's just that there's no reason to try. There's no reason to do anything. I'm just gonna go in there, like, effectively zombie through my day and call it. Like, I don't want to live like that. I want to feel like I'm trying to do something.
I should also mention on top of that, so you've brilliantly laid out how incredible the challenge that Netflix has to solve. on top of that, with YouTube, the metadata thing, because users are able to upload video, and there's an API where they can upload automatically and change all this kind of stuff automatically, every one of those things is an attack vector, as we mentioned. That's something they have to consider seriously on the engineering side, and on the sort of the legal side, they can get into trouble all kinds of ways. So they have to consider all of that. That's which is
Yes.
fascinating.
The legal side is obvious, but it's not really like I would never have initially thought someone would just say upload images that you're not allowed to own
Yeah.
or have, but that guarantee you that happens. Then you have the whole kid side, right?
And
Like think about when you mark something as kid friendly, how many times have they snuck porn into a Taylor Swift video or whatever it was? That was like a few years back. There was that whole Taylor Swift or whatever. I forget what it was. I thought it was Taylor Swift, but there'd be these mock videos that come up and then boom. It's like that is such an awful problem. And I'm so happy that is not a problem I have to try to figure out.
yep. Okay. So yes, YouTube and Twitch and Netflix are doing an incredible job. You eventually chose the madman you are to leave Netflix and to start on a new journey of being a wolf pack of one. Start streaming. What was that? What was the story of that?
So I was streaming for almost 7 years now. It started actually at Netflix. We did a charity, Extra Life. Shout out Extra Life for starting my streaming career. Effectively, it's just you stream, and whatever money you raise, it goes to Kids with Cancer Research. They are a great charity in the sense that they take no overhead and they raise their own donations for their website and everything. And so it's like a very great, straightforward charity. Really love like what they've done. It was super cool because I live in South Dakota now, but I actually could choose a hospital directly where the money goes to. So there's like a direct impact from A to B. So it's a pretty cool organization. And so my friend Guy Sereno, nice try guy is what I like to call him. He was probably the single greatest engineer I've ever met in my lifetime. And he was just like, hey, come do this. We're going to all do this. And so I played Fortnite. And so before I did that, I was like, oh, I better learn how to stream first. I better get, affiliated so I can like take subscriptions. And then if anyone gives me a subscription, I'll also pay that forward. And so June 2018 or something like that, I start streaming, and I start streaming some Fortnite, end up getting affiliated, end up doing the whole Extra Life thing. I end up really enjoying it. I'm like, this is a lot of fun. I'm playing Fortnite at that point, okay? So mind you, I'm a Fortnite streamer at that point. And I start really enjoying it. I keep doing it. And then one day I decide I'm going to do some programming because I really love Vim, and I think I'm kind of fast at Vim. And maybe people think programming is kind of cool because there was no really programming section at that point. And I did it. And I had like 30 people